Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm talking about The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, his debut novel and first book of the Burning Quartet. It was originally self-published in 2017 and picked up by Orbit Books in 2019, so it's a still relatively new story and it's still ongoing. The sequel, The Fires of Vengeance, was published in 2020 and the third book should be coming out sometime next year or so. The book has received a ton of praise. If you're someone who cares about accolades, it even made it onto Time's 100 Best Fantasy Novels of All Time, so it's doing pretty well. So I'm going to talk about some mild spoilers for the beginning of the book and a little bit of the end, but I'm going to avoid saying names of characters, so if you haven't read the book, I think you should be fine. I'm really going to also focus on more of the character building, the world building, and just the writing structure. So the specific details past the inciting incident won't be touched on too strongly. I'll also just say that this review is going to be overwhelmingly positive. I really enjoyed the story from start to finish. The action was gripping, the characters were fleshed out. Evan Winter has a really unique style of writing that I would call really efficient, in that he does a lot of characterization and excellent world building in a relatively small amount of words in different scenes, because there's so much action going on that you really can't slow down to get that kind of description, and it just worked really well. The story takes place in a sort of Bronze Age and African Kosa specifically inspired setting on one side of the land of Zidda. To the west you have the Roar, which is an unsettled ocean that's very dangerous, and then to the east edge of the map you have the Curse, which is an arid land where people don't really travel. So the prologue opens with action right away in something I can really only describe as fantasy D-Day. The Omehi people, the culture who we follow, have sailed across the Roar to find a new land to settle because their homeland has been taken over by the Cull, which is an enigmatic force that for now really only serves as background information. But anyway, so they sailed across the ocean, they've landed upon the shores of Zidda. Upon arriving on the continent, they find that the native people, the Zadine, do not want them there, and a very bloody battle takes place right on the beaches. Right away, Winter handles the prologue really well from a writing perspective. He sets up the reasons for why the Omehi are a really intense warrior culture and why they're fleeing across the ocean and why they're so hell-bent on taking over this section of land, even though they're kind of the invaders in this case. He also gives us a good taste of the magic right away. 1 in 2,000 women are gifted, so they have the ability to harness powers from Izihogo, which is the underworld, for various effects. So the two that are on display here in the prologue are Enraging, where a gifted magically empowers a certain warrior to become basically twice his size and just become super deadly in battle, and Entreating, where gifted call upon a dragon to just come down and rain fire and destroy everything. So after a really lengthy battle, the Omehi secure a place in these lands, and then the story really picks up 186 years later, because that was just the prologue. The people who fought to establish the Omehi in this land are now the heroes of legend. Our main character, Tau, is a boy of one of the lower castes in this society, and he initially aspires to be a great warrior. He trains in swordplay with his father, Aaron, who's a pretty well-respected soldier in his own right for a lower caste person, and his friend Jabari, who's actually a petty noble. So through this friendship, we find out really quickly that the Omehi are a caste-based system. They split their people into 2 overall groups, nobles and lessers, and then there's different subcategories from there. The bloodlines of these groups are actually really important because the nobles are on average larger and stronger and faster than the lessers. Crossbreeding is actually a sin to these people. And so we see all this in play with Tau and Jabari because Tau basically loses every sparring match that they have. Events pick up pretty quickly from there though. A Zadine raiding party is attacking a nearby farming village, and Tau and Jabari and other warriors go to defend it. Many of the Zadine are scarred and have like open sores everywhere. The Omehi claim this is a curse from the goddess Ananthi, but that's to be determined since we're seeing everything from the Omehi perspective. The defenders emerge victorious with the help of some gifted who entreat a dragon to come and burn the enemies. We also see one of the gifted dies immediately afterwards, so it's kind of a interesting magical mystery happening in the beginning there. After the fight, Tau celebrates with the other warriors. Then after a little bit of recovery time goes by over the next few weeks, there's another feast. He dances and kisses his crush Zuri, and they spend some time together. For a short while, everything is just great for Tau. Things soon take a downward turn though, and a series of events leads up to his father being killed, because of him. There are 3 men who are involved with the killing. Tao vows revenge against all of them. This sets him down a path of trying to become the greatest warrior in the Omehi history, not for the sake of destroying the Zadine though, but for the sake of revenge. After that, a large part of the book really focuses on Tao and his training with other lessers as they seek to prove that they're just as good as the nobles are. As the story goes on, we discover that some crossbreeding actually has occurred, and that kind of threatens the entire caste system, which is something that I assume will come up in another book. I also have to say that on the whole, the Omehi culture is actually kind of terrible. And that's not a knock on Winter's storytelling, it's just kind of the truth about the culture that he created very well. They have their sort of eugenics program going on, they brutally punish anyone who steps out of line, especially if they're a lesser, and they were the invaders in this story. I definitely intend to continue the series, but I kind of hope the Zadine end up being victorious and that the Omehi get their comeuppance. Something that really stood out to me about this book from a writing perspective is actually the structure of the chapters. Each one is broken up into about 5 to 8 sub-chapters, each of which have their own title within the chapter. So for example, you have an empty page here that just says chapter 1, but then the next page says air, and then, the story begins from there. A few pages later, it says duty, you have another subheading, and so on and so forth. Each subchapter is usually a single scene then that fits the theme of the heading it was given. Most of these end up then being as short as 3 or 4 pages and maybe as long as 12 to 15, but the chapters themselves end up being like 30 to 50 pages. The chapters as a whole then almost feel like self-contained short stories that are connected by the through line of Tao's vengeance quest. So it really created a unique structure that I don't think I've ever seen before. This book is also a good example of why predictability is not a bad thing in storytelling. Basically from the outset of Tao's journey, I figured I knew what the fates of the 3 men who were involved in his father's death would be, and my prediction was proven correct by the end of the story. However, that did not take away any enjoyment from me. In fact, I think I enjoyed the story more because I was able to see the satisfying and also pretty heartbreaking conclusion that Winter was building up toward. I recommend this book to anyone who likes intricate world building, unique, hard magic systems, and a whole lot of violence. The action really never lets up throughout the whole story until the very end, and even then it's only a brief reprieve until the next book. Overall, it's a very solid novel and definitely one of my recent favorites. That's really all for today's book review. This is kind of open-ended. I don't really like assigning scores or anything arbitrary like that, so I will just say I recommend it. It's a good read. You should pick it up. Thanks for stopping by my channel. Please like the video and subscribe if you are interested in hearing more of my thoughts on various stories and following along my writing journey. Leave a comment below if you've read The Rage of Dragons or if you're interested in reading it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. Or feel free to just say hello. I post videos on Sunday and Wednesday. Until the next time, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.